I'm Janine Kackma with the Palos Heights Public Library.
And I'm Catherine Cross, also at the Palos Heights Public Library.
And we're back with our show, Then and Now. This is where we take a look at history, local history hidden in plain sight. And we were just talking, for those of you who missed our first show, Catherine Cross has got a great background for this, with her background in public history, working at the National Archives, and her role in the local history room at the Palos Heights Library, and on the Story of Palos Heights, the digital video project that she created for the city.
And Janine also has a similar background, working at the library as the head of public services. She specialized in archives in her library science degree, and also trained at the National Archives. She's also the author of the Arcadia local history book on Palos Park, and also worked on that on our video of Palos Heights history as well.
We're having a hard time saying that today. But yeah, the video project on the Story of Palos Heights, and we have our background. We love the local history, and we're bringing that to you folks today. And today we're going to be talking about the fire department. We're going to start with that. So Catherine, I know you got some great photos that you found in our archives at the library, starting with the first fire truck.
Yep.
In Palos Heights. So we're looking at this Model A vehicle here, a truck from 1939. So
exactly.
Why at this point did Palos Heights decide to get this?
Well, as you know, the Palos Heights wasn't even incorporated yet at this point. So we didn't get incorporated until 1959. So way back in 1938, there weren't that many people out here. Palos Heights was, brand new little community, and there was a house fire in one of these new houses. It was the E. Carr home. It was in April of 1938, and there was no local fire department. So they had to call in, to fire departments in different areas, and it was a little too late to actually save the home. So that's when, shortly after that, they realized they needed to have their own fire department in Palos Heights.
Okay.
And there was you remember the community club that we've talked about before. The community club was a local
civic group, right?
Exactly, a civic group. Yeah, and they kind of because there wasn't any other local government going on there in Palos Heights, they were kind of like the local government. They got together and actually created that volunteer fire department in 1938.
They collected funds from everybody and said, hey, if you want fire protection, you got to pitch in for this great Model A truck that has, I can see a garden hose for the hose, a couple ladders, a strap to the top, a can of something, and a hatchet on the side. So
there's a couple axes there, hand extinguishers. It was really top of the line stuff.
So then they quickly, in a couple years, what did we progress to?
Yeah, you can see that this was just 3 years later in 1942 that these pictures were taken. This was the truck that they had. These photos actually come to us from Lou Reaney, one of a local Palos Heights resident who ran the pharmacy here for many years. His parents here are actually, he's in the photos as that little baby, but his parents are also in these photos. His dad Vince Reaney is holding him in the photo on the left, and then his mom is Ann Reaney is holding him on the photo on the right. So Vince was a member of the volunteer fire department, and so you could see how proud they were of the truck they had as the volunteer firefighters. It was growing, with their fire department, and more people were coming out here.
Right. So where did they keep it?
They had, I'm jumping ahead a little here to the fire department, but it started off in just a storage shed, which was located behind the realty office in town. So Robert Bartlett had, the realtor developer in town had a realty office, and right behind that was a storage shed, which was off the northeast corner of 123rd and Harlem.
Right, and that's where currently the regional news is right now, correct?
It is, yeah. Yeah, and
so it's a location we drive by every day. We don't ever think about, wow, that used to be where the fire department used to keep their old 1942 truck.
Yeah, and that's where they were. They were there for until 1943, just in that shed, and they just realizing we're going to rebuild it into an actual fire barn in 1943. And these photos here are some cool photos showing when they were actually building it. So the volunteer firefighters got together to build that new building.
Okay. And then they came up with.
They came up, well, one more photo just of them all together, which is with that same truck, you know, that they were going to be housing in it that we saw before.
I love that bell in the front of the truck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Playing that thing. And now we see that they've completed it here in 1944. We got the truck with the bell in the front.
Yeah.
Northeast corner of 123rd and Harlem, which is the present day regional news office. And but it's not there anymore. What happened, Catherine?
It is not there anymore. Yeah. So very shortly after they finished this beautiful new fire barn, in which they finished it in the beginning of 1940. 44 is when they actually finished it.
Okay.
And then, but there was a coal gas explosion the next year, December of 45, that destroyed all of their hard work. And that's when you'll probably recognize the next photo of what they built next in 1940. This is from 47, what the new fire department that was built to replace it.
Okay, now this is a kitty corner across from where it was now, right? This is off the corner of 72nd Avenue and 123rd, correct?
Yeah, 72nd, yeah, and 123rd, and yeah, this was the fire department called this home up until 1961 when they moved to a new building. But this was their home, obviously, from the late 40s up until that point. And that's what you'll recognize now as the fire department now, once their new home, which would have been right next to that old building.
Big difference.
Quite a big difference, yeah.
Do we have the next one?
Yeah. So then you can just kind of see them contrasted next to each other. What, that 1947 building versus what we all know of the nicely modern building now.
Yeah. So it's a big difference. I mean, again, you drive past the fire department off 123rd and currently off 123rd in Harlem right today. I don't stop to think how it started off with that Model A truck back in 1938, and how the community felt the need and they needed something, so they had to join together and work together. Starting off with that truck with a garden hose, and today now we've got the state-of-the-art equipment and training, the incredible firefighters that we have today. So that's the then and now.
Yep.
In plain sight, right?
It is completely hidden in plain sight. So that brings us to our next
another institution in the city, right?
Yep.
Right. Over 75 years ago. What could that possibly be, Catherine?
Yeah, you'd have a hard time, even when you see that photo on the left there of the Walter Ward home, you wonder, well, what could that possibly, be that was a bigger history than that?
So you're telling me, Catherine, that this related to something that's existing today in the city?
It does, absolutely.
Okay. I can't wait to find out what it is.
This was actually the first home of the Palos Heights Library. So,
okay.
It was established by the Women's Club in February of 1944. Walter Ward, the home that they first brought all their donated books.
Decided to set it up in his house.
In his house, yeah.
Why his house? Why?
So Walter Ward was actually that community club that we talked about before. He was the president of the community club. Okay. So when it came time to where were they going to have the library, he volunteered the front room of his house. And that's where they moved in about 1,600 volumes of books into that front room, and they realized very quickly that it wasn't going to, that it couldn't last. It was a little too small.
Yeah.
So the next year is when they moved into the community club building in town, which.
And as we mentioned earlier, the community club was the form of civic government at that point, because the city wasn't incorporated yet.
It wasn't, right? Yeah. Not
the
until.
City wasn't incorporated to 1959. So in the meantime, the civic duty-minded people were making decisions about the community and through the community club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So they donated a little area in the community club for the library, and they stayed there for another couple years. But then that building actually was sold, and the community club had to move into some other area. So the library was without a home. And that's where the fire department building that we just saw came back into play. So in 1947, the library moved up into the upstairs of the fire department.
The white building that you're seeing on the right, top right, which was the fire department, you see the boy going into the door, and then he had to go upstairs to this room at the bottom, on the bottom of the pictures there.
Mm-hmm.
Very small, and I know from the oral histories that we heard that it was a very cold room in the wintertime.
It was.
I know they had a wood-burning stove there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was their only form of heat up there. Otherwise, yeah, that's what we've heard. It was extremely cold. It was very small. You can see, like, it was hard for multiple people to even be there at the same time. It's just a very tiny little space.
How long were they there then?
They were there until they were in that little space until the fire department left, which was in 1961. So then they were able actually to move into the lower level. So this picture here in 62 is what you see when they were able to expand.
Yeah, it looks like they have a little bit more breathing room down there.
Just a little bit. Yeah, they were able to expand, triple their collection of books, a lot more than just a couple people could be in there at one time.
Yeah.
And it was, so that entire bottom floor of the old fire department now got to be the library. They did share the building too, though. The municipal court had moved in, and police officers were there as well, but they took over some of the other areas.
Okay, and then how long, what was the next phase of the library then?
So the library stayed in that location up until 1972. So you might, that photo or that art up in the upper left shows, it shows the first location in the current site where it is now in 1972.
So they moved, in 1972, they moved from 123rd and Harlem to this building shown in the top left corner at 125th, off 125th and
71st Avenue, yeah. And it was just a small building to start, 5,200 square feet. And it stayed that size for a number of years until 1988, which you see on the upper right there, and that's when it was expanded so to get even bigger, and it stayed until it was expanded for the third time in 2004.
Right. So in 2000, the difference between the 1988 and 2004 was that they added the second level.
Mm-hmm.
And added a huge meeting room onto it, and the front reading room with a fireplace and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we have,
there it is now. As if you've driven, anybody that has driven by the library will recognize it. The building that's been there since 2004 as it was renovated.
Right. So we the library started off in the little house of Walter Ward in the front room, grew over the years, shared it with the fire department, and we are what we are today. We've grown into a building with technology and programs, and we've become quite a community center a center for the community to gather.
Mm-hmm.
So there you have it. Then the library then and now. So Catherine, thank you so much. We talked about the fire department, we talked about the library. And we want to thank you folks for joining us again. Catherine, thank you always for your expertise in this area.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. See ya.